So we were discussing about caste in politics, and we had done caste inequalities, and we have to start from here. Caste in politics. How is caste used as it is, in politics? We'll study that. As in the case of communalism, casteism is rooted in the belief that caste is the sole basis of social communities. We all tend to think that society is divided only on the basis of caste. So we give so much importance to caste that it is the sole basis how social communities can be recognized from one group to the other. According to this way of thinking, people belonging to the same caste belong to natural social community and have the same interest, which they do not share with anyone from another caste. So let me make this very important here. They say that it's the natural social community that's been given there. And as we saw, as in the case of communalism, such a belief is not born out of our experience. Caste is one aspect of our experience. So much importance has been given to experience in caste, but it is not the only relevant or the most important aspect. Caste can take a form, take various forms in politics. Let's talk about it. When parties choose candidates in elections, they keep in mind the caste composition. The caste composition is very, take it as one of the very important aspects, because that's how they will know that which community will they be able to attract through that candidate. Okay, from different castes, so as to do muster necessary support to win elections. uh, when governments are formed, political parties usually take that representatives of different castes and tribes find place in it. So they look for representatives so that maximum votes is given to them. Political parties and candidates in election make appeals to caste sentiment. So that's how they use this caste sentiment to get, or I should say, to win votes. So this caste sentiment is used to muster support. Some political parties are known to favor some caste and are seen as their representatives. Many, you will actually, when you will think about it, you'll say the first word. If I take a state name, you'll say, oh, there this caste system is more favored, or again, you will naturally come to think of it. So that's how it is, universal adult franchise, and the principle of one person, one vote compile political leaders to gear up to the task of mobilizing and securing political support. It also brought new consciousness among the people that caste that were hitherto matlab, treated as inferior. So they also, brought notice to the castes which were treated as low and inferior as compared to another. The focus on caste in politics can sometimes give an impression that elections are all about caste and nothing else. This is far from true. Just consider these, because it's not, politics is not only about caste. And everything we might think, but no, it is not. No parliamentary constituency in the country has a clear majority of one single caste. So every candidate party needs to win confidence of more than one caste and community. So this is very important, that they need to win the confidence of only not one party or caste, but yeah, others also. No party wins the vote of all the voters of a caste and system. When people say that caste is a vote bank of one party, it usually means that large. So a lot of times we say that caste is a vote bank. We don't say that all the people from that caste vote to a particular party. It says that usually the a large proportion of voters for that party comes from this particular caste or that particular caste. Many political parties may put up candidates from the same caste if that caste is believed to dominate the electorate in particular constituency. Some voters have more than one candidate from their caste, while many voters have no candidate from their caste. So, choosing which candidate will you go for the election, although it depends on the composition of the electorate. As in, uh, uh, for example, if, in place A there are more Muslims than they, in proportion to other communities, then they will obviously the election, one political party will try to put forward in an election, a Muslim candidate, so that a large percentage of votes from Muslim community goes to their party, and so on. This is applicable for other candidates also, whether it's an SC, ST, or any other. uh, the ruling party and the sitting MP or MLA frequently lose elections in our country. It's not that one person is winning and winning and keeps on winning. They a lot of times, and even in states, sometimes one party, as you saw the case of Haryana in the 1991 election and 1996, how in one term Akali Dal won, in the next in the next term Congress won, and that's how it is. That could not have happened if all the castes and communities were frozen in their political preference. Clearly, uh, while caste matters in electoral politics, so do many other factors. It's not only the caste that it is caste that matters. The voters are strong, have strong attachment to political parties, which is often stronger to the attachment to their caste and community. People within the same caste and community have they have different interests depending on the economic conditions. Some might want this thing as a benefit, some might other want, because it's not like that the composition of one caste is same. Even in the one caste, some people are rich, some people are poor, some are educated, some are illiterate. So that also matters. Rich or poor men are from the same caste often vote differently. People's assessment of the performance uh, of the government and the popularity rating of the leaders matter, and are often decisive in elections. So these factors also matter when deciding in an election. Politics in caste, we have so far looked at what caste does caste does to politics, but it does not mean that there is only one way of relation between caste and politics. Okay, now we're talking about politics in caste. Politics too influence the caste system and caste identities by bringing them into political arena. So just look at here. Okay, the vote bank of India: Rajput, Kurmi, Gujjar, Yadav, uh, then Lohar, Sonar, Koiri, SCST, Ahir, and so on. Do you think that political leaders are right to treat people belonging to caste as a vote bank? No, of course. They should be treated as, citizens of India before anything else. But that's how the system is. So you really can't help it. Of course, you can if you don't, as a voter. It depends on us to which to to give. As a voter, it depends on us that to which aspect we give more importance, and eventually change will come. Okay, thus it is not politics that gets that gets caste ridden, but it is a caste that get politics. So we often say that that politics that gets caste ridden. No, it is not that politics takes into it, is that caste, that thing that takes politics into it. So that's opposite, that it's the caste that gets politicized. Oh. This takes several forms. Each caste group tries to become bigger by incorporating within it neighboring states or subcasts which were earlier excluded from it. So everybody, want a bigger share of the pie. So that's what they are talking about. Various caste groups are required to enter into coalition with other castes or communities and then enter into a dialogue or a negotiation. So we talk about dialogue, negotiation. We want to talk about bigger, incorporating. New kinds of caste have come up in the political arena, like backward, forward caste groups. Thus, caste plays different kinds of roles in politics. In some situations, expression of caste differences in politics gives many disadvantaged communities the space or demand, to share of power. In this sense, caste politics has helped the poor from Dalit and OBC to gain better access and decision making. Of course, caste has also helped. It's not that it's always negative. It has helped people to put up their demands and needs. For example, especially the Dalits and the OBCs to gain better access to decision making and other facilities that were not easily available to them. Several political and non-political organizations have been demanding and are agitating for an end to discrimination against particular caste, for more dignity and more access to land, resources, and opportunity. Everybody wants access to land, resources, and opportunities. Why people only from one community, one caste, religion have access to it? At the same time, exclusive attention to caste can produce if we give all the attention to caste, then it can lead to negative results, as well as in the case of religion. Politics based on caste identity alone is not very healthy. So uh, it's not a healthy process if you do, especially if the country is a democratic one. And then it can divert attention from other pressing issues like poverty, development, corruption. And if we keep on giving importance to caste, religion, etc., what will happen about poverty, development, corruption? That's still not ended in India, and India is a big nation. In some cases, caste divisions leads to tensions, conflicts, and even violence. And we've seen a lot of times that these divisions, whether these are due to religion, castes, or gender, or anything, they lead to tensions and conflicts, and even often end up becoming violent. So let's see what is written here. Okay, it's written, hidden apartheid. Y- you who have made the mistake, okay, those who leave for foreign lands, embrace other tongues, dress in alien garb, and forget this country, them I salute. And those who don't forget and don't change, even being beaten up for centuries, such hypocrites I ask. What will you say if someone asked you, what is untouchability? Is it eternal like God? What's an untouchable like? What does he look like? Does he look like the very image of leprosy? So leprosy is a disease where your fingers, and you don't have fingers, and even the legs and everything, these are like that you don't have this part. Okay, so that's there. um or like prophet's enemy, does he look like heretic, a singer, a profligate, or an atheist? Tell me, what will your answer be? Will you reply without hesitation, untouchable? That's me. That's why I say, you who have made the mistake of being born in this country must now rectify it. Either leave the country or make war. Babu Rai Bagul, translated by Vilas Sarang. So this, I think, this sorry, this poem that's written, or this thing that's written, is trying to show that, of course, in India we don't have a system such as apartheid, which was there in South Africa, but we have a system which is actually a form of hidden apartheid. Whether we talk about the caste system and everything, untouchability, even now, after so many rules and regulation, it is still practiced in India. uh, Occupational hereditary, where we talked about, that is also is in the hereditary occupational division, which is like we talked about, that people whose ancestors or forefathers did something, they will continue to do that same job. So that is also still there. So we are supposed to do these two, we are left. And yeah, so we'll see social and religious diversity in India. If we talk about it, what is it then? Then census of India, okay, records that religion of each and every Indian after every 10 years. So as I told you that after every 10 years census is taken. So the last was taken in 2011. So next will be here. It's going to start. The person who fills the census from visits every household and records the religion of each member of that household, exactly the way each person describes. If someone says that she has no religion or that he is an atheist, this is exactly how it is to be recorded. Thus, we have reliable information on the proportion of different religious communities in the country, and how has it changed over the years. The pie chart below presents the population proportion of six major religious groups in the country. Since independence, the total population of each group has increased substantially. The proportion in the country's population has not changed much. In percentage terms, the population of the Hindus, Jains, and Christians has declined marginally since 1961. The proportion of Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhist proportion population has increased slightly. There is a common mistake that, but mistaken impression that the proportion of Muslims in the country's population is going to overtake other religious. So a lot of times we say the Muslim population is going to overtake other religious groups. Expert estimate done for the Prime Minister's High Level Committee, popularly known as Sachar Committee, shows that the proportion of Muslims is expected to go up a little bit by about 3 to 4% in the next 50 years. It proves that in overall terms, the population balance of different religion groups is not likely to change in a big way. Okay, the same is true for the major caste groups. So now we've spoken about religion. That there, of course, there is going to be change in religion. Um, in the terms that some are going to increase in number and some are going to decrease in number, but there's not going to be much a difference in proportion if we talk about the previous. Okay, this is the same is true for caste groups. The census of India counts that the two social groups, whether we talk about scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, both these broad groups include hundreds of castes and tribes whose names are listed in the official schedule. Here, hence a fixed schedule in the name. The scheduled caste, commonly known as Dalits, include those who were previously regarded as outcasts in the Hindu society social order and were subject to the exclusion and untouchability. The scheduled tribes, often referred to as Adivasis, included those communities that led a secluded life, usually in hills and forests, and did not interact much with the rest of the society. In 2001, the scheduled caste were 16.2% and the scheduled tribes were 8.2% of the country's population. The census board does not yet count the other backward classes, the group we discussed in class 9. Hence, there are some differences about the population in the country's proportion in the country's population. The national sample, that is the NSS, 2004-5 estimates their population to be around 41%. Uh, Thus, the SC/ST and the OBC together account for two-thirds of the country's population. Um, and about three-fourths of the Hindu population. So you can see, okay, how much SC/ST are part of, and you can also see that there is going to be no major change um overall population balance. So this is very important, that a lot of times even say it for Muslims, that they are going to overtake all the other religious groups in population wise, but it's not gonna happen. Of different religious groups is not likely to change much in a big way. So this is important. The next thing that we have is caste inequalities. Sorry, we didn't see this pie chart. So you can see we've already discussed what's in the pie chart. Population of different groups in India. Hindus 80.5, Muslims 13.4, Christians 2.3, 1.9, and others, which include Buddhists, Jain, and all other religions. No religion, more 0.1% of population says that they do not even follow any religion. So if you talk about caste inequality today, then caste is an important source of economic inequality. This is very important, okay, that economic equality, because it regulates access to resources of various kinds. There are so many resources which are only accessible to certain economic status groups people. For example, in the past, the so-called untouchable castes were denied the right to land, while only the so-called twice-born caste that had the right of education. There were some castes who were not, they were treated as untouchable, and there were some castes who had only the access of right to education. Although this kind of explicit and formalized inequality based on caste is now outlawed, and the effect of centuries of accumulated advantages and disadvantage continues to be felt. Moreover, new kinds of inequalities have also been developed. The relationship between caste and economic. So, this role is very important. We are linking caste with economic status has certainly changed a lot. Today, it is possible to find very rich and very poor people in every caste, whether low or high. This was not true, even 20 or 30 years ago. It was very rare indeed to find rich people among the lowest caste. However, as evidence from the NSS shows, caste continues to be strongly linked to economic status in many important ways. The average economic status, which is measured by criteria like monthly consumption expenditure of group caste, still follows the old hierarchy. The upper caste are best off. The Dalits and Adivasis are worst off, and the backward classes are in between. Although every caste has some poor members, the proportion living in extreme poverty below official poverty line, which is much higher for the lowest caste and much lower for the upper caste, with the backward class once again in between. So we are saying there are these upper caste, then there's OBC, and then there is lower caste. How we are trying to portray, and in lower caste, sorry, we are okay, I'll tell you. Okay, like we are saying, giving a proportion that this here, okay, like here is saying the richest, middle and poorest. So in here, most of the people from upper caste, they come here in between, like most of the people who are from other backward class, or we'll say. And here people basically who are most in the lowest of the poor people. We are not saying that in the middlemen, they in the middle economic status, upper caste people are not there. There are there, but the line of margin, who has how much, is more worse for the people who belong to SCST, and it is better for people who belong to upper caste. And so, okay, although every caste has some members who are rich, and the poor caste heavily, who are rich. The upper caste are heavily overrepresented among the rich people, while the low caste are severely underrepresented. So that's what we are talking in the upper echelons and everything. Who are the rich people? They are mostly upper caste people, and in the sense that, see, if there's 100%, okay, out of 100%, who are this 100% is the other people who are extremely rich in India, okay, for example. Then out of these, we say that uh, 85 or 85 people, who are rich, they belong to the upper caste, whereas only 15% who might be rich, they belong to SCST, we can say that. And similarly, for example, we say that, in the 10% who are the people, the least 10% people who have access to anything, or the bottom lowest people who have no money, everything. Out of this, 9% people belong to people who are from SCST, whereas the 1%, yes, they might belong to upper caste. So this is what we are talking about, underrepresentative and being overrepresentative percentage of population caste living below the poverty line in India. So these are the rural and urban comparison. Caste and community group: scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, Muslim upper caste, Hindu upper caste, Christian upper caste, Sikh upper caste, and other upper caste. So all groups, if we talk about, so just look at the percentage of people who are poor in below the poverty line, in rural areas. They are 45%, and whereas in the other upper caste, people who are poor, it's only 27%. So that's the difference we are actually talking about. Upper caste here means that those who are not from SC, and OBC. Below the poverty line means that those who spend. So this amount is very important. What do we treat it as the poverty line? Those, we say that people who spend rupees 327 or less per person per month. So you are spending, okay, one person is spending less than rupees 327 in rural, and it's higher for urban areas, because in urban areas are more expensive, okay. And then they spend like 454 per this thing, rupees or less per month in the urban. So you can see, you just imagine how much do you spend per month, whether it's on eating, whether it's on going to shopping and everything. Just compare, you all can compare and see it for yourself. And now you compare that, you spend 15,000 rupees per month. Okay, now look at somebody who spends, person who spends rupees 327 in a rural setup for the entire months. You spending 15,000, whereas the other person spending just 327. Of course that person is below the poverty line. No, below this thing, national NSS, so which is a national sample survey organization, government of India. This was the 55th round in the year 1999 to 2000. So we've discussed the two sides, we had to discuss. Now mention, let's come to the exercise part. Okay, mention different aspects of life in which women are discriminated or disadvantaged in India. So there are many. If we start talking about, then there are many, whether it is politics, whether it is the home household work, and many others. You can first, if we talk about like the reservation, in the politics, because we've all this while we've been seeing, we've been talking on representation, over representation, under representation. So we talk about, that the proportion of women who are being highly paid and valued is still very small. So just like the example of income, we talked that who are the people in the top 1%, 10% of rich people in India. Similarly, we have it for, how gender and politics is taken into account. If we talk about how do we treat as an ideal woman, we have many as somebody who's good in that, somebody who watches a good TV, somebody who's a ideal housewife, and everything. We give so many adjectives to them. We talk about, literacy rate. Then of course only 54% of women are educated as compared to 76% of men. There's just see about the lack of education. Then we talk about who's being paid how much. We talk about Equal Wages Act. We talk about selective abortion, especially if a girl is, they come to know about the gender of the girl, gender of the of this thing, child, then baby. Then they would, if it's a girl, it's most in some areas of India, there is a very strong preference for male child, and that is there. Just look at the just look at the sex child ratio in the different states of and districts of India. So yeah, you can study, whenever this confusion, go back to the chapter and sort of revise it. State different forms of communal politics. We've done this. State how inequalities are still continuing in India. So we've covered these parts. That is why I'm not explaining. State two reasons to say that caste alone cannot determine the election in India. We have a pura paragraph here, okay, that give importance, that how not only giving one importance, because you need to not only have the votes from one party but also other party, and the people of India are not such fools also. So you can give, there's a big paragraphs, there are many paragraphs written, just summarize it well. What is the status of women's representation in India's legislative bodies? So, if we talk about local government, it's still better as compared to the state and central level. For example, we talk about the one-third reservation that has given more representation to the ladies, and so on. You can discuss. We've discussed all these questions, and again, focused more that what should be done. When we speak of gender division, we usually refer to biological difference, men and women, unequal roles assigned by society to men and women, unequal child sex ratio, absence of voting rights for women in democracy. When we talk about gender division, we mostly talk about the unequal roles which are designed by that men are supposed to do this, men are supposed to do that, women are supposed to be here, they are supposed to be restricted to falana, dimkana, and so on. In India, seats are reserved for India in only Panchayati Raj local bodies, that we've already know that one third is reserved for women's seats. Uh, Consider the following statements on the meaning of communal politics. Communal politics is based on the belief that a religion is superior to another. Yes, we always say that, we want more power. It's actually the religion that is um, politicized, and not that politics takes the religion into it, or community. People belonging to different religions can live together happily. As yes, they can live together, but this is not an act for communal politics. They For communal politics, you need to divide people. Followers of a particular religion constitute one community. They say that people who they do actually a natural grouping, that you are from the same this thing, so let's come together. State power cannot be used to establish the domination of one religion groups over the others. Of course, it cannot be used. No, India is a secular state. That means that we don't have any official religion. Which among the following statement about India's constitution is wrong? It prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion. Of course, it discriminates on that. Gives official status to one religion. No, secular secular country, so no. It provides all individuals freedom to profess any religion. Yes, right to religion. We have right to our of ensures equality of citizens within religious communities. Of course, then that is right to cultural and educational right, whether you can conserve your religion. So of course it doesn't give any official statement, because I'll just write that India is a secular state. That you will come to know about it. Matlab, that's more than enough. You can even further elaborate that, in India is a secular state and it does not have any official religion. It maintains a principled distance from all religion. Social divisions based on caste are peculiar in India. So yes, so it's caste. Then we have match the following list. One person who believes in equal rights and opportunities for men and women. So that person is a feminist. Whether we don't differentiate between people who of different castes. A person who says that the religion is a principal basis of community. He is a communalist. He believes on the idea of community coming together, and so a person who thinks that caste is a principal basis of community, then it depends, what preference do you give more. If you give to a community, you are a communist. Or if you do give to caste, you are a casteist. A person who does not discriminate on any other basis of any religion or any religious beliefs, then he's a secularist, just like India. So we have done this match the following. So we are done with chapter 4, and if you have any doubt, please comment down or feel free to email me anything which is comfortable to you. And yeah, take care of yourself, eat healthy, be positive, and enjoy life also. Apart from studying, try to take up a hobby, and yeah, improve on that. You need other skills also to live in life, other than just education and everything. Education is important. Yes, it is important. It will make you employable, that is, it will provide you employment opportunities, but its happiness cannot be found in employment. Live for yourself, live for your loved ones, and take care. Bye.